Unfortunately, I think that's probably the best place to start. My roommate's cat is a little terror in the best way possible. And this is the one room that, like, my room's a fucking mess. I will openly admit my room's a fucking mess. And because of that, Lucy's not allowed in here. And Lucy is personally offended that she's not allowed in here. So you will occasionally hear her just, like, banging on the door and meowing loudly out in the corner. She has food, she has water, she has other people to pay attention to. She's just offended she's not allowed in here. It I appreciate the energy, to be honest. She's a little anarchist. It's beautiful. Unfortunately, we should start with the heavy story for tonight. And there's I'm going to read two articles from this. There's the original from Riverfront Times that came out Monday, because most of this happened Sunday night. This was the original story, and then there's an NBC article we'll read after that is a bigger update. This article, however, is from the Riverfront Times. It is... It is actually going to be hard to talk about. This was written by Ryan Krull. St. Louis police crash into queer bar, arrest its owner. Last night around 12:30 a.m., so this was written Monday morning, perspective-wise. So this was last night being Sunday night around 12:30. A St. Louis police cruiser smashed into the front window of an LGBTQ bar in Carondelet. But it was Bar PM's co-owner who had wound up getting arrested and is currently being held in central booking. There were several police officers that jumped him, says James Pence, who co-owns Bar PM with Chadwick, who is currently in police custody. Pence said the police officer who ran into the bar told him he had swerved to miss a dog in the middle of South Broadway. Pence says he does have security camera footage of the crash, though he is not making it public at this time. You can see the footage in the NBC article, and we're going to show it. But I'm going to 100% lean down right now and say, once you see the footage... Actually, I'm just going to put the footage on next. We'll read the rest of the other article later. But really quick, I am going to pop on the footage, because the footage is the important bit. This is on Twitter. I'll share the source. Lucy, you're not allowed in here. It's not how this works. I'm sorry. Here's the source. I'm actually going to smack... If you want to watch this on your computer up close, I'll be reblogging this, so you can just... If you want to pop over to my Twitter, it'll be there. But you can see... Kitty... Shh. Vehicle comes along, and then there's no dog, and he just makes a hard left into the bar. There is no universe where this makes sense as an accident, a loss of control, or avoiding something. You can see in the security footage, there is fucking nothing there. And importantly, he starts braking first because he sees the bar and starts targeting. Brake lights come on, then he starts steering. It was not avoidance. It was a targeted attack. Brake lights come on, and then he starts turning. He's aiming. There's no... He doesn't try to correct after that point. There's no other argument for what that could be. This is entirely cops aimed at a gay bar. That's what this was. By the way, if you're curious, this is from a series of tweets from their lawyer. So you all heard about the cop car that slammed into Bar PM Sunday night, and they arrested the owner for having the audacity to question him. Well, here's the video. We represent the owners, and this morning the prosecutor's office agreed that Chad would be released on his own recognizance. We are awaiting him walking out of the jail right now. The prosecutor just called us and said that they will be amending the charge from a felony to a misdemeanor. But that won't be enough. We have video that shows that the police were the aggressors and Chad did nothing wrong. People are asking what they can do to support Chad and James. We will have more in the future, but the best thing you can do is come to the bar tonight. We will be open and celebrating Chad's release. Please retweet this, and the media has permission to use the video with proper attribution. So to be clear, this was not an accident. There's no universe where this makes sense. Yeah, it's also worth knowing, unfortunately, that a lot of the smaller reporters, they're going up against like gigantic budgets with nothing. However much I'd love to sit here and be like, oh, we should hold local journalists to higher to equally high standards as national outlets. I appreciate the skepticism. I appreciate the digging in. I have a lower bar, and just a want to continue doing the work is what I want from local journalists. Like, doing the work honestly is a low enough, is already a bar that people fucking trip over, that so many can't. Like it's a dying industry, so I wish I would feel that energy, like that level of like, are you vibing with the cops or not? I feel more of a question from NBC, because like, you have an audience, you have a budget. Realistically, as long as you can back up what you say with facts, you have a voice that not many other people do. What the fuck are you doing with that? We'll get back to the NBC article in a second, because we should focus on local reporting where we can, and this was the initial article. There were several police officers that jumped him, said James Pence, who co-owns the bar with Chad Wick, who is currently in police custody. The St. Louis, we had already read that. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department did not immediately respond to a message seeking comment this morning. We'll update this post if we hear back. The fact that this post doesn't have an update means that the police are openly telling local reporters to go fuck themselves in terms of comment. Yeah, we're at the point where the police are committing hate crimes against queer groups kind of in the open now. And they have enough of the back of prosecutors that the terrorism continues. It got dropped to a misdemeanor is not an apology. It's not fixing it. It's no, even though people smashed into your bar and you went out to ask what happened and they arrested you for having the audacity to ask questions, you were still in the wrong, and we're going to back our cops regardless. Like, this is bad. He came down to find the police SUV in his building and an officer demanding to see his identification. Pence says he replied, "No, you don't. That's a police cruiser in my building. You don't need to see my ID. That's not how this works." Pence says he was spun around and placed in handcuffs. Yeah, that's fucked. That is straight up. Again, we saw the footage. That was aiming. There is no question about the intention there. He aimed for the cops bar, for the queer bar. He saw the gay bar and decided he wanted to smash a vehicle into it. And then when someone came down and was asking why, he arrested them. And they still haven't dropped the fucking charges. This is going to get bad. Pence's co-owner, Wick, was taking videos and photos of the police vehicle when, according to Pence, 3 of them went for him. He raised his arms and they said he hit them. Pence was eventually taken out of cuffs, but Wick was taken away by the police. In addition to cleaning up the damage, Pence spent much of the morning trying to locate Wick. He later found out that Wick had been taken to the South Patrol Police Station, then SLU Hospital, for medical attention. He was then taken to the North Patrol, and finally around 9 a.m. was at Central Booking. I also want to highlight that fucking journey. That does... One, they beat him so badly that they had to take him to the hospital. They beat him so badly that they had to take him to the hospital. The bouncing around patrol stations is also suspicious as fuck. That doesn't read as necessary. That's wanting to have incidents happen. That is an extension of the terrorism. This is going to get fucking worse. Wick, whose legal name is Chad Morris, was later charged with felony assault. Pence spoke to the RFT as a group of friends and regulars gathered at Bar PM, which is located at 7109 South Broadway, to help clean up and show support to the owners. Which... Oh, thank fuck there were at least some people willing to stand up and try and help, but... God, the weight of this. Others who were there at the time of the incident say that no medical services or ambulances were ever called to the scene. They beat this guy so bad they had to take him to the fucking hospital. And at the time... Like, if that doesn't prove how fucking evil the intent was here, they beat this man after purposefully targeting his business. And they didn't bring an ambulance. The first thing they did was bring him somewhere they could have some more incidents, and then brought him to the fucking hospital. This is the second high-profile crash involving a St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department car in a week. Last Tuesday, a police SUV and another vehicle both ran a stop sign at North Sarah and St. Louis Ave. A police cruiser ended up being flipped over outside a business located at the intersection. And as if that wasn't enough, I have the NBC article, but the NBC article basically just has the additional surveillance footage. I don't really know that going through the NBC article that tells the same story is really going to be all that useful. We'll read it anyway. It has a few more details. Police crash car into St. Louis gay bar, then arrest co-owner. This is from yesterday. My understanding is this is the most recent update to the story. A St. Louis police officer crashed his patrol car into a gay bar on Monday and then arrested one of the bar's owners after an alleged altercation. Chad Morris and James Pence, who co-own Bar PM and live above it, said they came downstairs after they heard the crash at around 12:30 a.m. Monday morning, according to local NBC affiliate KSDK-TV. I was actually already in bed and I heard a loud boom, Pence said. I jumped up thinking it was an accident with a vehicle, and then I saw it. It was a St. Louis City Police Department vehicle in the front of our building. An officer was driving too close to a parked car Monday morning and then overcorrected and lost control of the vehicle, crashing into Bar PM, according to an incident report. So the claim about a dog has been thrown out, and now it was he overcorrected. Let's watch that fucking video again, because this is what they're claiming is an overcorrection. Come on. Oh, fuck you. Elon is a piece of shit, but we have to actually open it on X because they no longer transfer more than 5 minutes of video. Because fuck you, Elon. So it comes out, he goes hard left, and then there's no correction. There's no attempt to do anything else. He aims at the fucking bar. Like, there are whole seconds that anything else could happen. Like, he overcorrects, and then his solution, there is no attempt to fix. You don't see the weight coming back around like he's trying to do any sort of correction. He holds it left and then holds it left, because that was not an overcorrection. It was targeting. There's no interpretation of that. That's not fucking targeting. So the police are fucking lying here. Because they say they crash his patrol car by, what was the language they used? Overcorrected. He was driving too close to a parked car Monday morning and then overcorrected. Their best, most charitable interpretation of this bullshit, of this painful, horrifying hate crime, is straight up, he crashed and fucked up. And even that doesn't make sense. Even that, when you look at it, there's no attempt at any attempts to fix. It's not overcorrecting and then he tries to correct and get back on path, but he had overcorrected. He overcorrects in the sense that he aims at the fucking bar and then holds it down. There is no attempt. He's slow. If you watch at the beginning, again, it starts with him slowing down. Oh, right. He brakes and then corrects into it. He is braking before turning. The lights are on when he is going straight and the wheels are perfectly straight. He is not he doesn't brake because he's correcting. The braking is the fucking targeting. He wanted to hit the gay bar. He had to tap the brakes because he was going too fast if he wanted to hit the gay bar. This is not an accident. There is no universe where this was an accident. Pence initially told KDSK he heard a police officer make a homophobic remark, but he later said he couldn't be certain if it was an officer and not another bystander. Which, that... I do not think it was a bystander. The police are lying about this. I have no reason to doubt that there was absolutely fucking direct targeting from the police involved. Or at least a police officer using a police car. And everybody else is helping. The bar owner has reduced charges, not, any sort of actual correction. Just, you're only less fucked. Caselli said in his video, he has a video that shows Pence arriving at the scene, an officer approaching Pence and asking if he's the owner, Pence saying yes, and the officer asking to see Pence's ID. Then Caselli said the video shows Pence responding, "Why should I show my ID? I didn't do anything wrong." He says it loudly because he's not happy, Caselli said of Pence's response in the video. And an officer says, "You don't get to yell at me. You're under arrest for disturbing the peace." The cops get to crash into our businesses on purpose. No, this was straight up. He was looking for a reason to arrest the man. This was continuing the terrorism. This was, I'm going to arrest you no matter what you do. There is no other ending to this. And then when bystanders repeatedly asked the officer why he was arrested, he said, "Nobody gets to yell at me," which is not the standard for an arrest. Yeah, because that's not how anything fucking works. Pence was handcuffed but not ultimately arrested. Caselli alleged in the video, which he said he couldn't share because he plans to use it in defense of Morris, shows that the officer threatened to arrest the person videotaping him. Caselli said Morris arrived at the scene and began asking why his husband was being arrested, and that officers began yelling at him. He said Morris was trying to leave the scene down an alley when officers grabbed him and physically beat him in the alley, which is off camera. Y'all. There needs to be some coordinated and intensive protests. Because this shit is... This is painful. Caselli also shared what he said was surveillance footage from a nearby business that shows the police vehicle flying down the street where the bar is. Caselli said in a post on X that prosecutors agreed to release Morris on Tuesday morning on his own recognizance, but they reduced felony assault charge to a misdemeanor. Our goal is to have all of these charges dismissed because there's no basis for them, and then to decide what kind of claims my clients have against these officers and to hold the officers accountable because this just can't stand, Caselli told NBC News on Tuesday. You can't have police officers terrorizing people because they're victims of a crime, and when they're asked what happened to be treated this way. And I think that's even... I think the arrests were a part of this terrorism. I think the crash was purposeful. I think the arrests were purposeful. I think they know what the fuck they're doing. I don't think anything here was accidental. You could see them hit the brakes to slow down because they were targeting the gay bar. On Monday morning, St. Louis resident Zach Gandy, whose group, the Rudis Leather Society, regularly visits Bar PM, said bar employees called to tell him what happened, so he gathered about a dozen volunteers to clean up the bar so it can reopen. Anytime somebody is in trouble and you know you can help them, you do everything in your power to get them up and running, Gandy told KSD-TV. That's just what this community does. And... look, if there's going to be any positivity that comes out of this, and this is absolutely positivity looking. This is 100% me looking for a silver lining in a mushroom cloud. I get that. This is fucking catastrophic, but I do appreciate the community coming together. I really do. I love the fact that they are already working on fixing the bar, and they are already working on getting these people and getting the bar back to what it was. But it is absolutely meant to chill and terrorize our community. And everyone involved should be fucking fired. Short of that, we should not accept any of their supposed reparations. You are terrorizing my community. You don't get to keep your fucking job. The officers involved should get named. And they shouldn't know peace while they're officers. That's my opinion. The article was written by Joe Yerkaba, sorry. Okay. I need a bit of a mental palate cleanser. Because, dear God, did that suck? So here's something that, like, on the one hand, many, they'll be like, this isn't really progressive. But I very fucking clearly remember when this was impossible. So I'm going to count this as a W. You know what? I need W's to... Nowadays, we're in the take every W we can get stage. Like, it's hard to argue. We do not need W's, especially after that was a fucking story. The Vatican has approved blessings for same-sex couples in a landmark ruling. This is an article written for Reuters by Philip Puleda. The Vatican said on Monday in a landmark ruling approved by... God, it would help if I could use the English language, huh? The Vatican said on Monday in a landmark ruling approved by Pope Francis that Roman Catholic priests can administer blessings to same-sex couples as long as they are not part of regular church rituals or liturgies. Oh, I wish I'd read this. I saw a document from the Vatican's doctrinal office was effectively reversed a declaration the same body had issued in 2021, so that such blessings would not legitimize irregular situations, but be a sign that God welcomes all. It should in no way be confused with the sacrament of heterosexual marriage, it added. God fucking damn it. See, I'm out here looking for W's, and I'm not finding one here. This is not a W. We were closer to same-sex couple recognition under the last pope. This is regression. This is straight up fucking regression. It said priests should decide on a case-by-case basis and, quote, should not prevent or prohibit the church's closeness to people in every situation in which they might seek God's help through a simple blessing. So basically, it's putting a hard limit on the hate rather than actual acceptance. Because no, a lot of the stuff that they're saying they can't be a part of is like, can we recognize your marriage as with the community couple list? Or with any of the community family blessings. You're not considered family because we don't count it as a fucking marriage, but we're telling people not to throw the fags out, is like, without using that language, this is what they're saying. The Pope hinted that an official change was in the works in October in response to questions put forward by 5 conservative cardinals at the start of a synod of bishops at the Vatican. Yeah, This is the thing. This isn't progress. This is regress. We were closer to same-sex acceptance in queer stories. All right, this one's a little bit silly, but you know what? I don't even need a W. I just need my brain to be a little bit. Just give me some laughs. And Newsweek would like to inform you that Kentucky is the gayest state in America. This is an article written by Alice Higham? Higham? I'm honestly not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Higham? Kentucky is the gayest state in America by percentage of the population, according to new research by the University of California in Los Angeles. Oh, fuck. UCLA is out here saying that Kentucky is the gayest state in the country. Okay. According to new data released by the UCLA's William Institute, 5.6% of Americans identify as LGBT, with a rough of about 14 million people. The majority live in the South, with 5.2 million, or 36.9% of America's queer population living in places like Kentucky. Fascinating. Respondents to the survey were asked, which of the following best represents how you think of yourself? With the response options, gay or lesbian, straight, that is not gay, bisexual, something else I don't know. They could also refuse to answer the question. For measuring the number of trans people, do you consider yourself to be transgender? With response options being yes, no, don't know, not sure, or likewise respondent could refuse to answer. The study found that Kentucky has the highest percentage of queer individuals per state, with 10.5% of the adult population identifying as LGBT or T. Ha! Oh, the Trump thing? Yeah, I did. I have mixed feelings on that one. I think my dad actually put it perfectly. I talked to him for the first time in a while, and we had a really good conversation. And that happened to come up, and he brought up that, like, Trump is a lying dickbag. The number one thing you do not want to do is make it look like he's right. And I think that's the kind of horrifying version of what happened there. Because I am horrified by the idea of Trump running again. I am horrified by the idea of what happens if he wins. I am more horrified of the idea that somebody gives him the reins to create an extrajudicial, extra-legal system. Because that would be a nightmare. Because that's him straight up copying the Hitler playbook. Which, given his speeches recently, shouldn't be that fucking surprising, but... Anyway, Shadow, get out of here. I'm focusing on my positivity. I'm focusing on my W's and my funny right now, because that first one was just a kick in the fucking stomach. The study has found that the highest percentage of queer individuals per state, with 10.5% of the adult population identifying as LGBT or T, was Kentucky. However, pinching the overall top spot from Kentucky is the District of Columbia. While not technically a state, it has the highest percentage of queer people at 14.3. That says something. Because there are a lot of places that can be referred to as like a pure mixing pot. DC is one of them. It is like 95%, like, there are very few people who have like 2 or 3 generations living in DC. The vast majority of people moved to DC for something or had family that moved to DC for something. And usually you get moved, like, pushed out if you don't continue doing the government shit. The fact that Washington, DC is at 14.3, I'd be willing to bet that's probably closer to the national average if people were honest. Like, I get it. Yeah, I was not expecting Kentucky either. I was straight up, like, I thought this was funny. I saw this and was like, wait, Kentucky's the gayest state? Seriously? That's fantastic. Oregon, Delaware, and Vermont had percentages ranging between 7.4 and 7.8% of people identifying as either gay or trans. Vermont, again, is not that surprising. I think New Hampshire would probably be equally high, if not close. By the same measurement, West Virginia and Mississippi have the lowest percentage of queer adults, with 4.1% of people in each state identifying that way. Other people with lower percentages include North Carolina, 4.4%, Iowa, 4.7%, Illinois, 4.5%, and Alabama, 4.6%. The state with the highest number of queer adults in total is California, with 1.46 million, according to the UCLA. In second place is Texas, with 1.07 million gay or trans people, with a population of roughly 29.3. That's not that surprising, but that's, yeah, okay. Florida and New York also have a high number of queer individuals, with 898 and 853 million, respectively. Lowest was Wyoming. Alaska is the second lowest, followed by Montana. Ha! It's interesting that the fewest queer populations, even percentage-wise, are in the hyper-low density states, where you could make an argument that people are more dependent on each other for survival, so the need to not upset each other with your existence is higher. Yeah, so DC's at 14%, huh? That seems closer to the national average. That seems closest. I honestly think it's probably a little bit higher than that even. Because a lot of the people who are like, I'm straight, are telling themselves as much as they're telling the piece of paper. Like, they are trying to convince themselves at the same time they are writing it. By region, the South is home to the highest percentage of queer people. The West is home to 24.2% or 3.4 million, while the Midwest houses 20.6% and the Northeast 18.3%. It is interesting that places where actually, that's a good question, because yeah, they didn't include asexuality on the fucking questionnaire. Honestly, a lot of LGBT questionnaires and like research, half the problem is it's done by people who are really good at research but don't know shit about queer people. So like they end up having the worst phrasings and the worst understanding of things. And like, I honestly think there would be a lot of power if you could get somebody who was both very, very queer and into data science. That needs to be like an overlap. Here, if anybody in my audience is in college and trying to figure out what to study, go into data science. 100%. Go into data science. You want to make a positive impact on the future? Figure out how to convince companies that queer people matter numerically. Get into data science. That honestly, biggest help for all minority populations. Get into data science. Across age groups, young people have been found to be more likely to be queer, with 15.4% of adults aged 18 to 24 compared to 9.2% 25 to 34. Those 65 and older are least likely, with only 1.8% of Americans saying they are queer, while 2.8% of those 50 to 64 and 4.2% of those 35 to 49 say they are queer. Newsweek has reached out to the Williams Institute for comment. Considering how old this is, the Williams Institute is not fucking commenting. I do wish at some point, anywhere that has that, like, we reached out to X for comment, add a bit of code and a little bit of writing afterwards. We reached out to them for comment. Reminder, this article was published blank days ago. Low-key shame people into responding you. Okay. Unfortunately, the rest of the stories are all fucking horrifying. We are out of W's. We have run out of W's, ladies, and gentlemen, and everybody else. This came out today. This was published by Zachary Folk. This is in Forbes. Russia claims that Google hosts extremist queer content and levies a $50 million fine. A Russian court fined Google 4.6 billion rubles, or over $50 million, on Wednesday for refusing the government's demand to take down disinformation about the Ukraine war and hosting queer content on YouTube, which Russia has deemed extremist. Moscow's Tagansky court ruled against the tech giant at a hearing on Monday, finding YouTube refused repeated demands to remove queer content and content about the special military operation, the Russian government's preferred name for the war in Ukraine. Russian prosecutors claim videos posted on YouTube spread queer values and sought to convince minors to commit illegal actions, Russian state-owned news agency RIA Novosti reported. This is bad. This is genuinely terrifying. At this point, Google has two options. Option one, they try and censor their product. First of all, Google is not quite as regionalized as people like to think it is. It is fairly local, but it is a weird series of engines that connect to each other, and some of those engines are plugged into different states. If you censor Russia's, everywhere around Russia will be affected. Google engineers are still working on fixing that, but it's not fixed yet. And because of that, again, if you censor Russia, you are censoring everyone near Russia. Google is not quite as... The algorithm for Google is fucking complicated. It's to the point where you can get like multiple PhDs on the Google algorithm. And the problem with something that complicated is when you try to censor it, you can't easily isolate shit. So having things like making sure this stuff doesn't appear in one country means it'll affect tons of countries in the region. And if they don't do that, either they get kicked out of Russia and then there's a red firewall. Well, I guess the red fire... what would you call that? Because the red firewall is what you call the Chinese censor. So I guess there would be the iron firewall. But, like, there is no Russian replacement for Google. Like, say what you will about China, but half the reason why their ban has been so effective is they have spent literal trillions of dollars replicating the technology from Google. Every single component now exists in one of a couple different website suites. Weibo. There's a couple different major websites over there that are like they are our Facebook, our Instagram. And a lot of the same tech has been developed. A lot of different forms of tech, either with the same idea but done a different way, or just different fucking things have been developed. Some of their meme format and their meme ideas, because of the way like the character language works, you can't quite translate some of that into English. And also, they built all of the infrastructure. They built all of the shit that, like, if you need to search, they have... A search engine isn't actually that complicated. It's just really fucking heavy. It's just a computer that constantly searches the entire internet. And then when you search it, you're actually searching its most recent results. Basically, going to Google has a server that is constantly crawling the web and comes back with information and says, this is what is on the web. It is fucking expensive to develop that. And Google itself is not profitable, which confuses a lot of people because Alphabet, the company that owns Google, is one of the most profitable things on the planet. Google itself is not profitable. The way Google makes money is by selling the concept of Google. And what I mean by that is Google has users tied in. They have so many free services of people that just go to Google now. And the data from that, they sell. That is the useful thing. That plus some advertising stuff. But, like, Google had to operate at a loss for several years. They existed in a very competitive market. And now they're incredibly capable. So anybody who tries to create even a similar search engine gets, like, you are in the fight for your fucking life if you try that. Russia doesn't have that. There is no Russian Google right now. Like, China can tell the world to go fuck itself because it has its own software. That is an incredible, like, the operating system on a core level. They are building an Android equivalent that is slowly, like, it's getting full competent. And once it does, they could tell the whole world to go fuck itself. They don't need anybody else's tech. Russia can't. Russia is not going to be able to pull off nobody can use Google anymore because every single Russian fucking citizen would be like, okay, how do I use the internet then? All of them would figure out VPNs that day. That would be like NordVPN would become a $1 trillion company overnight. But if they can basically force Google through fines to pay for the replacement when they get kicked out, Russia's running low on money, but they're not running low on brutality. Excuse me. This is the steepest fine the search engine has faced in Russia related to spreading information about the queer movement, which was banned by the Supreme Court in November. Russia had previously fined the search engine billions of rubles for hosting information about the Russian military, 7.2 billion ruble in 2021, and 21.7 billion ruble, 238 million in 2022, which prompted Google to pull all employees out of the country. So, thinking about it, okay, this is worse than this is not as bad as it seems the more that I'm thinking about it. Like, you get fined $250 million. That is we can't take many of those hits kind of thing. Google's data, like the harvesting of data, is such a profitable venture that Alphabet is, like, they make more than 50 million a day, I'm pretty sure at this point. So the 250 million, that fine is like, yeah. And if they this is the kind of story where you need to keep an eye on it. If this keeps happening, if they get hit over the next few weeks with, like, no, every single day it's like getting more and more and they're stacking on top of each other, that's a problem. This isn't even as bad as the old ones. They sent one for 7.2 billion in 2021. And that shook them a bit. The one in 2022, that was 240 million. They were like, okay, pull everybody out. That actually could be really bad. Which one, I think Russia's fucking broke. Like $50 million to most countries would not be that much. To the Russian war effort would actually be substantial. So I'm not sure that this isn't like, no, we need money. Give us money. This seeing the previous fines is weirdly reassuring, because if this is a real story, it has to get up to that number, which that's the number where Google's like, yeah, pull everybody out. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. So this is a story to like keep your eye on, but this also could be Russia going like the equivalent of digging their hand into their pocket and aggressively looking you in the eye. Like, I'm not saying this is good by any measure, but at bare minimum, how much does Google make in a day? 34.4 million per day. Yeah, they make this fine back in 2 days. Like, this is straight up, like, just somebody is doing the aggressively patting of pockets and having forgotten their wallet at the restaurant. It's a dick move. It's absolutely not the way you should be handling this. I don't think this is as scary as it could be. It's the fact that they're mentioning queer propaganda implies there's going to be targeting in the near future. And again, this is more a story that is developing and to be watched, but like, yeah, this is the definition of we need money, of like, this could be so much worse. If this is a story to keep your eye on. Definitely make sure this doesn't like blow up in the next few days, but also eh. Oh, I've got two more kind of sad ones. All right, we'll go with this one first. So this is an article on the Daily Beast. I really don't like the way this is written, so I'm kind of just going to go through the rough details. It's written by Justin Rorlick, who he has that meandering writing style where he goes between concepts without like giving enough detail and then trying to loop back. There is a guy, his name's Francis Kumba. You might know him from like, he's appeared in Vogue, ID, Women's Wear Daily. In a somewhat complicated story, it's a little bit hard to like follow the bits of. He presented as non-binary for a period, and then very clearly said like, no, I am going to be presenting as a man from now on. I want to take only male roles. And then there was an attempt that happened multiple times to like paint the fact that he was at any point non-binary as a reason why he had to keep doing women's gigs, and then when he didn't, as a reason to deny him giving him any work. The modeling agency is denying the majority of it, but like, there's a lot of documented evidence and a bunch of emails and like back and forth that they were able to get. That's like, no, they pretty clearly were doing this, but also I cannot stand his writing style. And importantly, I don't like the Daily Beast. So while I am going to link this, we're going to move on. This story is by Hannah Gravenstein. This was written for PBS. After a year of anti-queer legislation, a lifeline for trans and non-binary people faces cuts. If you are a trans person in crisis, feeling suicidal, or need a safe place to talk, there are hotlines and online resources that can help. And because I never want to talk about this without... If you need to reach out to someone, reach out. You matter. This is going to be a heavy one. If you need to not listen to this, I totally get it. If you need help, this is... I'm going to put this in as well. And you are not lesser if you need help. It is 100% valid. I am sorry you're going through that. I know that weight, and it sucks, and I hope you can find solid ground. After a year of anti-queer legislation, a lifeline for trans and non-binary people faces cuts. The nation's only mental health hotline, designed specifically for and almost entirely staffed by trans people, will pause operations for the last 2 weeks of the year, and will decrease its hours of operation when it returns in 2024. As corporate donations have fallen, the Trans Lifeline has faced major budget shortfall, leaders of the nonprofit said. According to an announcement released on its website, the Trans Lifeline will also temporarily pause its micro-grant program, which distributes small funds to trans people which may need financial assistance, including for things like their name and gender on official documents. People can call the hotline, which launched in 2014, if they're experiencing a crisis or just need to talk. Operators are all trans or non-binary, and the hotline is unique in that operators don't call emergency services for callers without their explicit consent. That's fucking huge. That is incredibly big. There are a lot of people who don't reach out when they need help because they don't want the cops called on them. And then... we're shocked that they don't get help if the other systems just tell them to go fuck themselves. Like, you told them to go fuck themselves. What were you expecting? The Lifeline started this year with a $6.1 million budget, a sum that its leadership was confident would be reasonable based on gradual but sustained growth. In the past few years, the Lifeline received substantial corporate donations. Wait, the Lifeline started in 2014. This year is a misplaced bit. That's an error. Because they say in the past few years, like immediately afterwards. The Lifeline received substantial corporate donations, Bunny said, in the past few years. But word among the nonprofit campfire, especially among queer and trans nonprofits, is that we've all seen our funding fall precipitously this year, said Bunny, the Trans Lifeline's director of operations, who goes by a single name. Some nonprofits have had to shut down completely. Others have had to do massive layoffs. It's just a really hard landscape right now. As Republican politicians ramped up anti-trans rhetoric this year and state legislatures have passed dozens of bills limiting the rights of trans youth and adults, the organization saw corporate funding slow to a trickle. Bunny declined to call out specific donors, but noted that the Trans Lifeline is facing a $2.5 million deficit at the end of 2023. Bunny estimated that the Lifeline employs around 40 to 45 people, with around 200 volunteers who help, added Adam Callahan, director of the Hotline program. Earlier in the year, the organization's leadership cut $700,000 in non-personnel expenses, hoping to avoid any financial impact for employees, but ultimately staff and volunteers have been affected, with some taking voluntary furloughs or reduced working hours and others leaving. The trans community at large will feel the effects mainly in reduction of calling hours to their hotline and a pause in distribution of microgrants. Until December 18, the hotline will run 24 hours a day, as it has since its inception. After a 2-week pause, however, volunteers and employees will staff the hotline during limited hours from 10 to 6, with weekend hours expected to resume in 2024. So they now aren't running during the vast majority of the time. Fuck, that's heartbreaking. That the Lifeline is pausing operations at this time of the year is particularly difficult to Diego Sanchez, Director of Advocacy Policy and Partnerships at PFLAG, an LGBTQ advocacy group. The holidays can be hard for anyone, he said, but often come with particular anxieties for trans people. Frankly, this time of year is the most critical for people relative to needing to have a lifeline of some type, making sure that when they go home, if they go home, that they're safe and dealing with the distress that they're not able to go home because of a lack of family support. Yeah. Anybody of any queer variety has complex feelings around family. If you don't, you are fucking lucky. The vast majority of queer folk that I know have some family member who's rejected them. A significant portion have had most of, if not all of their family reject them. It's a thing a lot of us face. And having the suicide hotline run out of money right when all of the families are pushed back together is it's almost a sick joke. It's painful, but fuck. We are, if nothing else, a resilient community. I think as the silver lining from the mushroom cloud of the bar incident is the community is coming together to patch the bar back up. And I think our community is going to have to come together and find out new ways to build support. I think we need to start figuring out new internal systems. Okay. I don't know about y'all, but that did more than a little bit of psychic damage to me. So I need like 5-10 minutes to go reset my brain, and then I'll be back. I think that is going to be it for me. Thank y'all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Stay dangerous, y'all. Keep each other safe. And remember, moral doesn't mean legal. And Stonewall was the fucking riot.